Well, it's raining, so I'm starting out with a Golf GTI. Hopefully it'll dry up and I can switch over to the Cayman later. But if not, we're doing this. But now I'm a Fiat 500 or Uno, and we're gonna do the track walk. I'm here for the track walk.
Nur ein Trackwalk.
Genau.
Okay, das ist okay, ja.
Ja, dann komme ich mit dem anderen Auto später zurück.
Ja,
Danke.
gut.
Yeah, this car's a little small for this. Oh, new GT3. Morgen.
Track walk?
Yes.
So follow him, turn around on the main straight, so you will be and then up on that side. So
Got it.
park behind the cars there.
Thank you. First time ever going the wrong way on the Döttinger Höhe. It's parade go time, if you can hear me over the GTR in front of me. Slowest lap ever. Move up. Here's the bridge off Bridge to Gantry. Tiergarten. Line. looks like Schwedenkreuz is going to be our first stop. Arnberg. Okay, Arnberg is on the first stop. And I'm between two GT3s now.
This corner, of course, is called RSRNurburg, and the preceding corner that we just came around, that fast left-hander, is called Schwedenkreuz, or Swedish Cross. There's actually a cross just on the outside, and it's named after that section. Very important, and I wanted you to stand with your backs to the guardrail over there so you can get an idea of the elevation. You know, we're coming downhill over here. We've just exited a very, very fast left-hander. You need as much braking as you can for this corner over here. Relatively speaking, this corner has a fairly early turning point. You can see that dot, if you follow this white line, that little dot, just a little bit further up on the tarmac. Can everyone see it? That's your turning point over there. Now your entry and exit speed is, as I said, quite important here. Coming from Schwedenkreuz, we didn't feel it now because we were going at a slower pace, but there's quite a nasty bump right on the apex of that corner. And remember, we're still coming downhill, so we're carrying a lot of speed. You need as much braking in a straight line to set yourself up nicely for this corner over here. Another thing is the size of these curbs. Obviously, you want to stay well away from these curbs. And what gives you an indication that this corner is rather dangerous is the gravel trap here on the outside, which really doesn't do much. It's supposed to slow you down, but it doesn't. Don't count on that. The notes I've got here is this gravel trap is a joke, like all of them on the Nürburgring. And it's quite true. If you find yourself coming off the track here, chances are high you're spraying stones all over the racetrack, and if you attended my safety briefing yesterday, don't carry on driving. Towing is included today, and we'll send a tow truck to try and dig you out. You can see these stones are quite big, quite sharp edges, and we want to keep those off the track as much as possible. And like I said, tricky corner, very, very dangerous. And in terms of your times, you know, there's not much you can gain in terms of this corner. So while you're driving, try and remember this spot. Rather concentrate on taking it accurately. Really go for your apex. Take note of your turning point over there. Rather than ultimate speed, remember we've got gravity on our side here. So nice short shifting through your gears and then down into the foxhole, which is the next corner after this RSRNurburg over here. I've got another note here that crest on Schwedenkreuz. It's quite harsh, but it says the crest takes lives, and it's true. If you've done your research leading up to today and you haven't driven here before, you would have probably stumbled across some crash videos. Many of them would be from this area over here. I find a lot of photographers, a lot of filmers got their cameras positioned over here and at the end of that straight, and that's a dead giveaway as to this corner creates a lot of action, a lot of drama. So yeah, RSRNurburg, when you get it right, it's a fantastic corner to drive. Like I said, and like you can see here, we're coming on a downhill trajectory. So getting some good drive out of the corner is a really good idea, and of course then onto the rest of the lap. Any questions for this point of the track? No? Fairly straightforward, yeah? Yeah. Oh, another thing, I've got another note here saying that as well, and you can see it from this angle, is you've got the camber on your side here. You've got small amounts of positive camber. So again, all helps with grip. And of course, like I said, you want to concentrate on being accurate with this section of the track rather than speed. And that's probably the best advice I can give for this section of the track.
Any difference to the wet?
Yeah, so good point actually. Let's spend some time talking about that. Now coming into RSRNurburg, in the dry, you're braking in the left-hand side of the track. Now in the wet, in these conditions, it's going to be very, very greasy. So ideally you want to be a little bit off your ideal dry line, so a little bit more to the right hand side, center, even a little bit to the right. And that's where you're going to find most of the grip, and you can get most of your braking power on the right hand side on your entry into this corner. You see that little dot? If you follow this white line, that dot on the tarmac over there. That's your entry point. And you'll find as you get more and more laps under the belt, you'll start noticing more of those dots positioned all around the racetrack. They do once or twice a year sectional training here on the Nürburgring. And luckily for everyone else, they go along and repaint those turn-in points and your apex markers. And it really does help with where you need to be positioning the car. Some of them aren't all that easy to see, but when you know what to look for, they just kind of pop out, and then they start becoming second nature. So try and keep an eye out for those little dots. I think most of you have an instructor with you today as well. They'll be using those dots as well as other visual references. Aim for that tree. Look up, there's a bit of yellow graffiti on a section of guardrail. Everyone uses their own kind of reference points and where you should be aiming the car.
Okay, we're back. First thing about this part of the track is, holy crap, does it go downhill. You really can't tell in the simulator how much of a downhill this is right here. I understand why it takes so much brake force to get down to the apex at RSRNurburg. Los geht's. Ach, einfädeln wieder. Well, I mean, it's drier. Hopefully that means we will get into the Cayman at least this afternoon. Okay, how did I manage to be packed between two subbies? And look at this downhill. This is crazy. Runter in die Fuchsröhre. Fuchsröhre. Here's the compression, and yeah, it's definitely compression. You can see that feeling pretty good at speed. Metzgersfeld. rechts rechts. Und 3 rechts rechts. Wählen wir uns wieder aus. Das ist eine gute Kurve da. Zu bereden.
As you start picking up your speed and you get more and more laps under the belt, again, this corner becomes, I don't want to say dangerous, but perhaps scary is a better word. From the car, it feels like you've got a little bit of negative camber, but you don't. This guardrail, however, gets very, very close. Maybe a meter of muddy runoff there. And we're carrying a fair bit of speed through this section. This section, of course, is called miss, hit, miss. And the clue is in the name. Where the last cars are parked there on the left-hand side, that's your apex, that's what you're aiming for. Preceding that is a curb that you're going to miss. And then afterwards, this curb over here, you're also going to miss. Hence the name miss, hit, miss. But very important now, again, we're still traveling downhill. And the next corner is a right-hander, fairly quick, but the preceding left-hander is the slowest corner on track. Called the siphon, and it's really just a drop-off where you need to plan your braking very, very carefully. Obviously, leading up to the first right-hander, you need to brake in a straight line. Remember, you're carrying a fair amount of speed through this section over here. You need to release the brake, turn in for the right-hander, and then you've got a very short section of track where you need to, again, do some braking and really reduce your speed. You'll see as we drive through that section, obviously the elevation is a major factor. And from this point on, we're almost at the halfway point of the track. And you would have noticed we've been traveling fairly downhill in the first half. From that halfway point, it's more of an uphill section for the rest of your lap. A couple of ups and downs, but generally more uphill in the second half of your lap, whereas you're heading downhill in the first half of your lap. And of course, what that means for the handling characteristics of your car is the first half of the lap you're more on your brakes, whereas the second half of your lap is more down to power and acceleration. So I've mentioned you need to brake twice for that slower corner over there. Again, you're carrying a lot of speed through this miss-hit-miss section. Another clue as well as to how dangerous this section of track is look at all that new guardrail behind you. It gets replaced very often, and that gives you a clue. You can also see again, like we saw at our previous stop, the size of these curbs. And I find that's what tends to get most people is they get too close to the curb, they rest their right-hand wheels on the curb, and it pushes them outside, to the outside. Again, like I've said already, look how little runoff we've got. So take caution at this section of track. Like I said, it is fairly fast. You need to plan your braking quite carefully, but a really, really fun and rewarding section of track to drive. Yeah. Any questions for this section? No?
And we're off again. Einfädeln lassen. Alright, I've got the GT3 behind me now. Two of them really. 992 and 991. Mehr Seifen. Brake, lift, turn. Brake. Again, the amount of downhill is intimidating. Oh, wow, it's an uphill into Exmunit. Lauter links. Glück auf! Bergwerk! It's all uphill from here. Kesselchen. Oh, this wouldn't be close to Tor yet. What's the palace afterward? Gute Kurve. Here is close to Tor. Steilstrecke. Klasse! Let's go up.
And it's really nice to be out of the car here and look at the elevation or the banking of this curve. And a good tip for this section of the track is to use the banking to your advantage. And what I mean by that is, load up the right side of your car and really put both wheels onto the concrete strip over here. And that's where you're going to find all the grip, really. Your entry point, if you can remember this when you're driving along, is block number 3. You can see there's quite a few, it's quite a worn section of track indicating where the entry point is. You're limited, of course, by the banking as well. And of course, as you could feel, even at a low speed, how bumpy it is in the carousel. Now, of course, this corner was named after a guy by the name of Caracciolo, and this wasn't originally the ideal line through this section. Everyone was using the tarmac on top, and old Caracciolo came along and wanted to do some overtaking, so he put his car onto the banking and overtook, I think it was 3 or 4 cars. And since then, it's just been used as the correct line. So yeah, quite an interesting fact about this corner. Like I said, using the banking to your advantage, but then of course there's a limit. If you don't want to get kicked out of that banking at speed, because of course the track then levels off, and we've got 0 runoff on the outside of the track. But unlike the last section we stopped at, where it was pretty much all new guardrail, you can see this guardrail here is fairly old in some sections, most sections at least. And I think that's just down to it being such a fearsome corner and such a fun corner to drive. Most people tend to take it easy and enjoy it for what it is. But yeah.
You said third block, so these are all blocks.
These are all blocks, yeah.
So you get in on the third block.
Yeah, you're counting 1, 2, 3, and then you're putting the car in, both wheels on the concrete. Another good tip for this section is when you get into the carousel, is try and look as far around this corner as you can. I find your arms naturally follow the perfect radius of the carousel. Rather than trying to, eyeball it, I find then you're a little bit all over the place, wafting from the bottom to the top of the concrete blocks.
Onwards. Where do we stop next? München? Pflanzgarten? Einfädeln? Right behind the Hyundai. And the rain is back in force. Uhr 18. sir. Schwach. Ründchen. Nice kurve. Alright, we're going through Flansgarten. Schwalbenschwanz. Kleines Karussell. Bumpy. I see. Not quite sure. Looks like we're gonna park at Geigenkopf.
Göttinger straight where we started. So of course, this part of the track is very, very important. It's also a very tricky curve to take. The idea here is to try and get one steering input all the way through, one radius, and obviously get as nice and early on the power as possible. This is a make or break corner during racing. If you get a good exit speed, you're going to get a good lap time. If you don't, of course, then you won't. So a very, very important section of track this. From your turning point, which is just obviously behind us over there, there's a little drain that we use as our turning point on the far curb. You're keeping wide, so on the left-hand side of the track here, and I always use that fence, that 186 marker as my reference point. I'm keeping my car to the left-hand side of the track here, and as I reach that fence, that's when I start tightening up and going for my apex, which is just a little further around that corner over there. Obviously not getting on the power there, only once I reach my apex, and just before that I want to get nice and early on the power, get as much drive out of this corner as possible, so obviously you can get as big a top speed as you can down the Göttinger straight. Yeah, of course, another thing about this section is we've got a nice crest. It's just behind us all over here. So as well, the car can tend to get a little bit unstable if you're not accelerating or not braking. So keep aware of that as well. And of course, again, we don't have the luxury of runoff on the left-hand side here. We've only got 2 meters of nice slippery grass. Again, a fair amount of new, fresh guardrail has been installed here. Again, just as an indication that it gets replaced fairly often.
And we get to go and pick up the DTI, because it's definitely not dry. Here's the gantry, end of the BTG timing section.